Okay, this video is the ultimate remaster of my interview with the co-founders of Rare, Chris and Tim Stamper. Rare obviously is one of the most beloved game developers of all time. They made Donkey Kong Country, Killer Instinct, Perfect Dark, Banjo Kazooie, Conker, and much more. But it was also one of the most secretive developers in the world, so this interview with Rare really is rare, because it's one of the only interviews the Stampers have ever done, and certainly seems to be the only video interview with them in existence anywhere online. And it's been that way for over 20 years now. Now for this video, for the first time, I also wanted to share a bit of background on how this all came together. This interview happened in 2002, the day after Microsoft announced it had bought Rare for $375 million, which back then was as big as it got in games industry acquisitions. And it was a bit of a shock and awe moment as it sunk in that Rare would no longer be associated with Nintendo, as was strongly the case for many years up to that point. Now, despite how elusive they were, weirdly enough, this wasn't actually the first time I had met one of the Stampers, but I'll come back to that in a second. To be honest, I'd never seen an interview with either of the Stamper brothers before, except for one, which was this 1994 interview with Tim Stamper on the UK TV show Bad Influence. It was very brief, but here's a clip.
So Tim, what's so special about Donkey Kong Country?
It looks amazing because it's all in 3D. If these characters were real and they lived, that's what they look like.
So why is this your favourite?
I think the effect was dynamite. There's multi-parallaxing layers of snow, maybe 12 or 14 layers, so quite a feat on Super NES.
I was just a kid when this aired, but I always remembered how impressive of a scoop it was, not to mention how hyped everyone was for Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct and the so-called Ultra 64. Fast forward to the year 2000, I'd been in games media for a few years at that point, and I found myself at Space World. This was the Tokyo event where Nintendo unveiled GameCube for the first time, and it's the subject of one of my more popular videos on YouTube so far, which if you haven't seen it yet, I'll link to that at the end of this video. Rare did have some presence at Space World 2000 with very brief GameCube tech demos, including Perfect Dark and Banjo Kazooie, as you can see in my footage here. And by the way, it does seem I was the only person in the world to get a recording of the Banjo demo, and that to this day, this recording remains the only evidence that it ever existed. But this wasn't the only glimpse of Rare I got at Space World, because I did bump into Chris Stamper himself at the event. And in a way, it led to my first interview with one of the co-founders of Rare, which went something like this.
What do you think of the presentation?
Now obviously, 9 words is not a big interview. In later years, interviews with the biggest names in games did become one of the things my site was known for, so 9 words wasn't going to cut it. And then, in 2002, this happened.
Here at XO2 in Seville, Spain.
You know, the latest rumor is what? Rare, that Microsoft's buying Rare. I just wanted to come up and say in front of all of you, well, it's true. We do have Chris and Tim Stamper here in a very rare public appearance. Please welcome Chris and Tim. This
footage from Microsoft's XO2 event is another example of lost material from my archives that's been restored on my YouTube channel. So if you like this kind of thing, you might as well subscribe because there's still quite a lot more where all this came from. And if you want to see the full announcement video from XO2, I'll link to it at the end of this video. So anyway, the day after the announcement, I managed to sit down with Chris and Tim Stamper together. I remember a real buzz about this opportunity, especially given the context of such huge news about Rare and Xbox. And to this day, I do feel fortunate that I had that chance because as of 2023, it doesn't seem like that opportunity came up again for any media ever since. Which is what makes this particular interview one of my most treasured and really quite a rare piece of work. And for what it's worth, I hope it doesn't stay this way. These guys are a huge part of gaming history, and I'd love to see them do a modern interview, looking back at everything they achieved back in the day. In this 2002 interview, the Stampers were joined by Ed Fries from Microsoft, and for those of you who don't know, Ed is one of the best guys who ever worked at Xbox. He's someone I was fortunate enough to stay in touch with and interview over the years, including 3 years after this, when we were able to look back at the Rare acquisition with some degree of early hindsight. And I'll also be putting a new remaster of that interview on my channel soon as well. So anyway, that's the background story, and now, here's the interview.
So how long ago did you start negotiating this deal?
I think the first contact was made earlier this year. It's something that obviously there was a desire from both parties to put this thing together, and it's just process of time to make sure all the parts fit. We wanted a partner with the right vision, a vision and optimism for the future. Just listening to what Microsoft has been portraying in the recent past. I mean, it's there. There's a lot of optimism, and that is really good to see. You know, we believe in this industry. We've been making games for over 20 years, and it's our life. And we want someone that actively believes in the future. We want to make games. That's what the company's all about. And finding the right partner is the most important criteria, and I think we've done that with Microsoft. The reservations were not being able to find the right partner. That was the biggest concern. I mean, creativity is a very fragile kind of beast, and you need the right environment in place to make great games. And so it was more important than anything else to find that right partner. And now that we've done that, I think you'll see the best games we've ever made will come out of the following years. So we're very excited.
Are you going to miss anything, or anyone at Nintendo?
That's a good question. I suppose over 15 years, we've developed some wonderfully close relationships with the people at Nintendo, and especially with the people at EAD. And yes, there are going to be people there that we will miss this kind of day-to-day communication, but they're still our friends, and we will still see them at the shows. And it's not as all we've seen in the press about there must be some rift between Nintendo and Rare, and that's certainly not the case. And I think that's borne out by the fact that we've been able to sort out all of the IP ownership issues. So yes, a few sort of tinges of sadness in terms of the people we leave behind, but obviously we're very excited about all of the new people that we're meeting at Microsoft and their kind of vision for the future. I mean, that really does excite us. So we're really looking forward to it.
So the little dig at Pikmin at the end, what was that all about? It was a little dig at Pikmin, wasn't it? Or was that just my imagination?
No, I think people liken these little characters to Pikmin, but nothing intended there. They were actually in the cameo game, if you notice. It wasn't separate. Wasn't separate.
There are a few franchises, pretty famous, popular franchises mentioned yesterday. Any sort of vague hints that we might be able to see on Xbox in the future?
Well, obviously, we demonstrated, we showed a video of Cameo, so that will be one franchise, and a very brief intro of Perfect Dark. So those two are definitely coming to Xbox, and we have a few surprises back at home as well. The two IPs that go back to Nintendo are Donkey Kong and Star Fox, and the rest of the IP, the IP that Rare developed, that actually comes back to Rare. So it was the separation. We have a very good relationship with Nintendo, and they work very well with us, and it worked out great in the end. I suppose there's the Saberman character is one that we may see in the future. Rare has always made its own decisions in terms of whatever games we wanted to make, and the same I think going forward. We have a very strong belief in our own ideas, and I foresee that continuing.
Well, I mean, we saw everything. They were great to let us come through and meet the teams and see all the development. I mean, what's really unusual about this deal is that there's so much development that's so far in progress that we can pick up. I mean, the only thing that's assigned to Nintendo is Star Fox that just shipped. Everything else is ready to switch over and then start to exploit the Xbox. So I feel like we get such a running start in this deal, as opposed to taking 2 or 3 years to start something from scratch and bring it all the way through.
Happy New Year.
What role do the two of you continue to play a role these days? I mean, is it hands-on anymore, or what do you get up to during the day?
We are actively involved in all of the games that we make. Games are our life, and it's what we want to do. And I think actually the Microsoft deal will give us more time to devote to that. Myself, I'm still the technical director of Rare, and Tim is the creative director. We want to spend as much time as possible getting involved with the games that Rare produces.
I think I have a ton to learn from these guys.
We're not going to let them in.
There's only so much they'll share, I've known these guys for several years, and it's funny, they've come over, I've seen Chris will come over during a trade show and say, what's with those monitors you're using? So I've learned from him even before this deal. No, I mean, with more than 20 years of experience, these guys are just, there's no one like them in the business. And not only that, but I feel like they've worked with some of the best, working with the core Nintendo team, working with Miyamoto. I feel like they've picked up a lot from that as well. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I think Tim would be great to comment on how they make games.
Don't mean it last. Rare has a different philosophy. We don't really have any or much contact with other game development companies, and we just do things the way that I guess they've evolved. And we try to employ people that are great games players, game enthusiasts, and they're really interested to see the other games that we're developing in the company. So it's really a group of game enthusiasts all working together to produce the best games they can. That's really.
Obviously, we've heard the official line, but how has your experience been so far with Xbox development? Is it really as great as they have us believe?
It's the best development environment we've ever experienced. The Cameo demo that was shown last night took us 2.5 weeks to put together. I mean, we're just amazed by how easy that was. I mean, we just feel now that we're going to have far more time to actually focus on the content and really, sort of explore new possibilities rather than just worrying about the underlying sort of technology and everything else that goes along with making great games. So it's the best development environment we've ever experienced.
It seems clear to me that Xbox is the best platform for online gaming. What we're building with Live is one unified system, right? One worldwide unified system where in every game you can talk. In every game there's one name that you own that's around the world. In every game you can find out where your friends are. You can invite them and have them join you. There's a handful of things that are very important to us as the foundations of the platform.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really important feature of the Xbox platform. It's something that has been well thought out. You obviously can tell that the Microsoft people have put a lot of thought behind what will make connectivity really work. So yes, we're very excited, and we do have plans to incorporate that in our future games. We have some sort of research back at the company that we're actively involved with at this stage. I suppose it tells us it opens up a new door. We're just opening up this door, and we don't really know at this stage what we're going to find on the other side. But it's a new world, and we're really looking forward to exploring that.
I think we've learned a lot from the acquisitions that we've done. Bungie, for example, is one that certainly has worked out well, but also that we've learned a lot from. We took them and moved them from Chicago to Seattle, and then we kind of had to do a lot of work to recreate the environment that they had before and try and make it back to the way they like to work. So going into this deal, it was really important to us and to them to really preserve everything as it is, to make sure that we keep the magic the way it is. And so we've been able to structure this deal in a very unusual way for Microsoft, to just keep everything the same, so that for the average employee, it's going to seem I still work for Rare. Well, it is nice to have a place here where we have some first-party development. I mean, I have a studio in Japan and several in the U.S. obviously, so to have a first-party studio here in the UK is a great thing. I'm certainly going to be visiting these guys and seeing the progress of the games. There's 175 titles now, so it's just here in Europe, more than 200 in the US. So there's pretty much something for everyone at this point. The great thing about Rare, though, is just the broad appeal of the titles that they produce, their ability to sell to just so many people. I mean, and I don't think they even think about it this way. Their focus is we just want to make a great game. We just want it to be fun. But yeah, when their average sales is 1.4 million units, it's incredible. So that I think is really going to help us broaden the audience for the Xbox, and that's great.
Thanks everyone.
Okay.
Thanks very
you.
much. Thank you.